Welcome to Hybrid Theory. I'm Aurian Archive, and we might notice that things are a tiny bit different for today's stream. Not much in the way of a background, just an input from my phone. And I've got two games open. And the first one that we're looking at is called Jules Classic 2022. Now, this is actually an updated version of a long running game that I used to play some time ago. I've got it on a number of different phones I've had over the years, and I stopped playing it because the when I bought Jules Classic whatever version, the developer allowed you to buy a pass out of advertisements. And as I was jumping from phone to phone, the advertisement the ability to disable advertisements was not following from phone to phone, and so I'd left a rather nasty review. Uh, and well, when I installed it and loaded up for this phone for what I'm about to go through, the no advertisement button was now clearly marked, clearly backed, and there's no obvious advertisements when I'm playing. Now, I really dislike advertisements on a phone. And this applies to Android phone, Windows phones, Apple phones. Doesn't really matter what kind of phone you have. Advertisements are generally not good. And we're going to get to the end of this match, and I'm going to try and explain why. Now, I wish that one of my older phones would work on an uh, USB-C to HDMI output so I could capture from from a device that I've played a number of games on rather than just this device here. But oh well, you run what you have, not what you had. Okay, and we're getting very very close, and just need one more. And in this particular version of a match game, there's a couple of different ways to get you can either tag the box directly, or you can run up enough score at the top. So, like if you have something down here and you can't quite get to it, can't quite move it, if you run up your in the upper left hand corner, there's that orb. As you fill that orb up, it will make an attack on its own. I just need. There we go. All right. Okay, now I want you to notice at the bottom of the screen what's about to happen. And we'll just sit back and wait for it. All right. What's out on the bottom screen? You go as an advertisement. Okay. For try our new game, Bubble Shooter, get it on Google Play. All right. So let me pose a tiny question here. What if that was not an ad served by the game developer? What if that ad was served by a third party? As in, excuse me, as in the developer contracts with a third party ad provider who provides them a certain amount of income for a certain amount of views. Well, that sounds, kind of like what you do with Google Play Ads. You sign up with Google Play Ads, or you sign up with Google Ads, and Google injects advertisements into your web page. That's all fine and good, and advertisements are very useful to let people know about products that they may not be aware of. And that's kind of the point of advertising. But in a post Spectre, post Meltdown world, where zero day exploits are using hardware features to drop the payloads and implement the exploits, A third party server that can inject any kind of code that it wants to into any kind of application that you're running actually is a big problem. You might be going, well, it's just an advertisement. All it has is some text and images. Yes, but take another look. This advertisement did not open in a new browser. It did not open in a new window. It did not open in a completely new, whatever, sandboxed environment. This ad opened up inside the game. Now, if you have to give the game permissions to access your phone or any information on your phone, such as your file storage or permissions to run, all of the applications that you have given, all of the permissions you have given that application to function apply to the advertisement inside of the game. So that advertisement inherits all of the official permissions from game, all of the permissions, every single one. So if a game can access your camera, the advertisement gains access to your camera. If the game allows access to your microphone, the advertisement gains access to your microphone. This is a big problem. And one of the things I really wish we would see Android and Apple adopt is where you can selectively, on demand, this application is trying to access this feature. Do you want to allow it? And you're going, oh, I'm not doing anything with the microphone right now. Why is this wanting access to my microphone? And I suspect that if either vendor did that, we would probably see a complete backlash from the user base when they realize how extensively an advertisement can violate your personal privacy while in action. So I really like games that allow me to turn advertisements off. I will happily pay a certain amount of money so I don't have to deal with, well, third-party ad supplier have been taken over by hostile entity here, and now my entire context list has been scraped because I just wanted to play a simple game. And if you're paying attention to sites like Android Police, you'll see occasionally notifications about uh, these apps are stealing your data. We know these apps are stealing your data. You need to get rid of them. So that's the real quick overview on why I dislike advertisements and why lack of advertisements is a huge selling point for any game on any platform. You don't spam me with content that I cannot control, and I'm okay with, paying for, uh, off. I know some people say you can make more money through advertisement than you can through game sales. No, you can't. The advertising rates are low enough that even if you set your advertising opt out at $2.99 or even $1.99, chances are, well, statistically speaking, if you have a game that is worth playing, you will more than make up, probably in 1 month, the amount of sales in no advertisement alone then you're going to make over 10 years of advertising. The rates are just that low. The math doesn't work that way. All right, so I like games that don't implement advertising. I mean, on one hand, yes, it's useful, to hear about another game. In fact, it's actually how I heard about one of the games that I played for a long while. One because of an advertisement that was injected into another game I was playing. But at the same time, there's also the kind of point of filtering on storefronts. Like if you go to Google Play or you go to the Apple iStore, you should be able to filter games by the type of game that you're looking for. Are you looking for a puzzle game? Are you looking for an RPG? Are you looking for an RPG and a puzzle game? You should be able to filter and find games and then be able to sort through the kind of games that you think you'd like to play at a place where you go to get games. Having an advertisement shoved in your face about this game is sketchy. Okay, so now that I've gone over why I really dislike advertisements on mobile platforms, next I want to address the concept behind match games. Now, I like match games. I really do, because some of them you have a constantly changing, constantly the board is always doing something different. You having different options. The board is changing. No two rounds are ever exactly the same. But there are limitations. And one of those limitations is random number generation. Now, Jules Classic, since I'm effectively starting a new game, I really can't show off what I would want to show off in relation to this. Um, but somewhere around the that's not going to let me go any further. Oh no, is that as far as it went? Yeah, somewhere around the 400 something mark. No, it was before then. Somewhere up in here, you start getting ice blocks and control box, and at one point you get to maps where you only have one move that is available to you, period. You make that one move, it doesn't actually break any blocks or allow you to proceed, and the entire map has to reset. Now, this is important when considering match games because being able to control the board, being able to do different things on the board, the combinations that you can make with the pieces to advance forward, and as demonstrated earlier, one of the things that this game does in order to move the board is that every time you move up that orb in the upper left hand corner, you fill it up, this game will start to it will fire off a shot and eliminate a random piece from the board. But it's not just any random piece. As you get further and further into playing the game, the random piece turns into one of the protected boxes. So if you're filling up the bar and hitting it over and over and over again, the game itself will start to eliminate um, protected squares that you might not have a move on. And we'll force that square on the lower right hand corner. We'll try and get a fill up here. And we're also going to go for a timer. Okay, there we go. So this game has a very unique mechanic for clearing the board. So even if you are stuck and have no moves to accomplish your goal, by making other moves on the board, you can get to a point where something happens that allows you to still progress. And this is, I think, an innovative concept. Not a whole lot of games, not a whole lot of match games will give that kind of flexibility. And there's actually another one, I don't have it loaded, called Guitar Girl that's really bad about that. Where you can get stuck messing about on one side of your playboard and you don't have any way to progress forwards. So, giving players the ability to modify the board or change the lineup, do something to adjust the jewels that you have to play with, or the gems, or the candies, or whatever. And as you might notice, this game does that without having a third party hit button. There's no fruit bombs, there's no additives. You can completely advance ahead by just playing the game. You don't have to purchase extra something. You don't have to insert micropayment here. You can completely progress through all of the levels just by being able to play the game. And I really like that. I really liked it. I can turn off the third party advertisements. I mean, yes, the game still hands me its own advertisements. But okay, I'll give the developer that. And there's a blue star. All right. So as we finish up this round, oh, I should have gone for a yellow. Another thing I like is that if you in the post game blast out, if you hit a timer, it'll still get added back up, so you can increase your score that way. So even if you're not doing so hot, so I really like this game. And like I said, it's been my go-to for I need to time kill. All right. So at some point when I was having problems with advertisement not tracking me for this game where I paid for it and I was still getting third-party injected advertisements when I went to a new phone, I started looking around for a ad-free match game. And I came across a game. I think I actually found it through Reddit. See previous stream about for the Redditors. And I think I just found it by searching because I had to look it up again because I couldn't find it in any of the app stores that I used over the years. And it's like I know I've bought a game, and the game is called Dungeon Raid. Now at this point, the developer of Dungeon Raid has stopped updating, stopped programming the game, stopped updating it for new Android platforms, so it's effectively delisted from the Google Play Store. Even if you purchased it, you can't actually see it in your library, which I think is a little rotten. The one phone I do have it on, uh, I think is may have been the Leico. Uh, but in Dungeon Raid, it combined elements of a match game where you match different items with an RPG. You progressed forward and you killed or defeated your enemies in the game, the opposing whatever you're up against. In this case, since it's a Dungeon Raid, it's a Dungeons and Dragons inspired game. Uh, your character would advance. You would get more hit points, you would get more attack, you'd get special abilities. And I'm not sure that it was the first game to combine a role playing game element and a match game element, but I really liked it up until the point when it became aggressively predictable, as in it was ludicrously easy to get higher and higher scores. And it just stopped really being fun to play. There wasn't a whole lot of variation. There wasn't a whole lot going on. Once you'd mastered the basics, that was all there was to it. And then while playing another game, I got an advertisement for a game called Puzzles and Empires. Well, and this is about the period when the impact of what an advertisement meant when injected through a phone. Right now, here we have a little gray box underneath our score, and that's like maybe where an advertisement might be playing without the advertisement turned off. So again, that's injected code into the game that inherits all the properties that the game itself has. Again, that's a big problem. Not just from a security standpoint, well, from a security standpoint, but from a personal standpoint. And don't want to tangent down that too far. Um, but Puzzles and Empires, their advertisement allowed me to play around of a match game where, and when you made matches, instead of just clearing jewels from the board, the jewels zoomed upwards and attacked an opposing force. And I kind of liked the concept, so I downloaded the game and I tried it out, and I really liked it. It Puzzles and Empires was a perfectly competent mashup of a hero collectible card game, a match game, and it had a few different features. And honestly, the reason why I stopped playing Puzzles and Empires is that I started not being able to connect to it. And this comes into another point for a mobile game, respecting your privacy. We'll launch into a game here. If I have to stop, I can hit the pause button, and now I have a resume, retry. Now, they do use their advertisement and the pause screen to kind of hide the board, so you really just can't pause the game, study the board, and then choose what move you're going to make. You could technically do that, but if you're really going that far, you could just hook up like I'm doing now, a capture device, run it through the capture device, hit screen cap, and then pause it, and then look at the screen cap, and then figure out your optimized moves. And yeah, you could technically cheat that way, but it's a neat little touch. And if you go back to the home, you don't lose anything. And if you exit the phone, exit the application, you really don't lose anything. And this is, in my phrase, is respectful of the player's time. And this is the whole thing with mobile games on cell phones. Most of the time, if you're playing a mobile game on a cell phone, it's because you're having to wait for a few minutes. You're standing in a line, you're waiting at a bus stop, you're going back and forth between tasks. So, a game that respects, excuse me. So, a game that respects the player's, excuse me, a game that respects the player's time. It gives you ways to pause. It understands that you're not going to be there. That is just a temporary experience that's really minute by minute. Mobile games are not really, or ideally, you don't expect a mobile game to offer you a console like experience. Now, there are some games, such as uh, uh, it's by Right Flyer Studio, and I don't want to have to turn around and go look it up. Um, Cat in Time and Space. And I think they also did a Secret of Mana game for Square Enix recently. Uh, Heroes of Mana? No, maybe. Um, anyways, you can get some competent console-like experiences on a phone. Now, I don't particularly enjoy most of those, and I'll pick on Final Fantasy um, First Soldier for a second. Excuse me. Final Fantasy First Soldier is a 3D action game, and kind of requires you to use your touchscreen like thumbsticks. It doesn't really work. Most games like that just don't really work. They really they really highlight the difference between the haptic feedback that Valve put into the Steam Pad, the Steam Gamepad, and then the Steam Deck, where you have some kind of responsiveness when you're using the trackpad versus on a phone where you have absolutely zero response. And also on the Steam Pad and the Steam Deck, uh, when you use the trackpads, your fingers aren't covering up the screen. On a lot of games, your fingers are covering up the screen. So again, use just primary usability problems. But this is also why there is a massive third-party market for adding controllers to phones so that you can game without your fingers getting in the way. Um, yeah, being respectful. I know I got off on a tangent there from being respectful of time, and that was something that I really didn't like about. Excuse me for a second. No, I'm not having a good morning. That was something that I ultimately one of the things that kind of broke me on Puzzles and Empires is when I started a game up and I'd be waiting 5 minutes for it to connect. I'm not joking. I timed it once at 5 minutes. Uh, and when you're waiting 5 minutes and you can't turn your phone off or it pauses or it shuts down or does whatever, that's getting kind of a problem. And at some point, I noticed a game called Call of Antia. And Call of Antia, initially, uh, did lots of things that I really liked. It didn't have advertisements. You didn't have third party videos, third party applications just being injected into your game experience. Uh, it was respectful of the player's time. The battles moved very, very quickly. And we'll look for a, actually, I know how we'll do this. Okay, and I've got a couple of players that will actually do what I want them to do. All right. One of the things it does now is you have a speed modifier in the upper right hand where you can cycle between different speeds. And it's like I just normally throw it on 3x and forget it, and now all of our animations move very, very quickly. Collectively speaking, okay, I want to focus on you in the back. Now let's wipe the board. Let's get rid of our... All right. Yeah, almost done. All right, we'll take it back to 1x. Where this last guy is, as you can see, the speed difference when enemies aren't attacking. So if you're running it on a slower platform or you've got a weaker platform, you can just kind of tone it down and have time to think about the action that's going on. And this was something that I really, really liked because if you needed to slow down the game, you can. And also, like Puzzles and Empires, Call of Antia is a basically hero collectible. Now, one of the problems here, and this is almost true of any hero collectible game, is that anything under 3 stars is, well, useless. Now, there are some 3-star characters who have very useful powers: heal, strong attack, annoying attack, but pretty much anything that's a 2-star. And you might notice that there are no 1-star characters in this game, or at least I haven't seen any 1-star characters. Everything's either 2, 3, 4, or 5 stars. So you only have 4 categories. You don't really have 5 categories of heroes to work with. Okay, so there's basically a lot here to like. As you get more characters, you can do automated tasks that get your player specific rewards. Okay. And what I'm looking for here on this screen is uh, there's a little green, there's where it says requirements for bonus. When you hit autofill, if those check in, and you get the primary and the bonus. So even if you're not able to play matches, you can still gain rewards. And if you have characters that don't meet the conditions, you can refresh. So you get a mission that you can go on. You only get basically 2 refreshes a day. And I know I have a 5-star, so now I just gotta wait for the other ones to finish processing, and then I can run that final mission. So you can basically still progress your character even if you're not actually, or get some kind of rewards even if you're not actually playing the game. And on top of that, and now that you've seen me run through a match, we'll come back to Samuel. We'll do Ascend again, and we'll bring up 1910. But this time we'll do Auto Win. Now, if you've already cleared a map, you can just go ahead and auto win that map. That's actually a nice touch. And we'll come back here. We'll do auto win one more time. And you can also get loot tickets that automate the win for you. So you can, even again, if you don't have time to play, but you need to get rewards, you need to work on a character to progress the character forwards, you can do that very easily. Call of Antia is one of the few games where I would have said that this game respects the player's time. It lets you speed up the game, it lets you move faster, but there's some downsides to this. And we're going to go over what those downsides are. Now, when I think of this is from a design standpoint. When I think of designing a game, one of the primary thoughts in my mind is a simple question. Can this game work if the player is offline? And think about that for a second. If the player has no internet connection whatsoever, can your game still work? Now, if your game still functions in an offline mode and still give players access to everything that they might need, you probably have a pretty strong foundation, and your player is more likely to be loyal to your game in particular, because they can still play your game even if they don't have an internet connection. And one of the failings of Call of Antia is that it routinely makes checks for everything. There's no concept of an offline mode. Now, if you live in an area with a spotty internet connection, or you routinely travel to different areas, uh, let's say you have a really long commute, or you're a cross-country traveler, or you're doing something where you would travel a lot, having a game that only supports online mode might be difficult to play. And if you live in an area that has, and I'm going to pick on the entire United States here for a second, if you live in an area that is not serviced by T-Mobile home ISP internet, you are probably stuck with a Comcast, Charter, Cox Communications, Suddenlink, Huawei, or some other regional provider that is attached to one of those backends and probably is also attached to an AT&T backend. Basically, what I'm saying is, for most of the United States, you may have less than desirable internet coverage until T-Mobile or Starlink show up, and, well, there's a reason Elon Musk is having no problem selling Starlink at all, because the AT&T and Level 3 backbones are, I'm not going to say desperately needed an upgrade, but having worked for one of those backbone providers, I can definitively say that the focus was not on spending profits on upgrading the network infrastructure. Picking on a head end in Las Vegas, for example, that was entirely made of copper. Yeah, Las Vegas gets hot in the summer. Now, it would be expensive to change out that copper head end for a fiber optic head end, but a fiber optic head end is not susceptible to heat damage. In fact, you can use fiber optic head ends in very uh, egregiously hot temperatures, such as we're talking 112 Fahrenheit or up to 115 Fahrenheit. A lot of fiber optic head ends will just go, what's your problem? A copper head end will be a puddle. And the company that owned this head end was not willing to replace it because they could build a copper head end for a fraction of a cost of a fiber optic head end. Well, question for everyone who's being serviced by that head end, which was literally a few thousand people, I think it would actually be more like thousands of people, possibly even upwards of, I don't want to say it was close to a million people, but it was nearer the upper range of hundreds of thousands of people that would all be affected by this head end dropping out due to heat. So you're costing customers on the other end money because they've lost their internet connection because you can't spend your money like you're supposed to. All right, so this is where, yeah, maybe I'm a little oversensitive to having an offline mode or making sure that your game works in an offline mode, but it can be really important, especially if you're intending to sell into areas where the internet service isn't that great, or the internet company that services that area isn't interested in upgrading their hardware. They just want to sit on the profits and put as much money in the bank as possible. All right, so yeah, just obviously hot button topic for me. I could rant about that all day. So let's get back to talking about Call of Antia. So on the surface, it's actually I was really impressed with what I first played because very early on, I wound up with the character Hightown, uh, which clears the board of all green, what they call Naya stones. And I also wound up with Elemist. And Elemist, if we look at his detailed information, he turns 5 non-purple Naya stones into purple ones. So he can put purple stones on the board, which help to just recharge him over and over. You can get into a loop with Elemist where you can basically trade off with Elemist and Mary and rack up some serious amounts of damage between that combo. And I really like this early on. So, why is the title of my stream How Call of Antia Chased Players Away? Well, to understand that, well, first of all, I actually have to go and look at the sales. Let's clear the free one out. Now, as we look down the sales, we see different items. We see a daily offer, and then we see something interesting on a daily offer 208%. Let's go over to the supply. Nothing really egregious here. Let's go over to selected. Okay. Here we have beginner offer. Obviously, I'm not a beginner with all the characters that I have, but there are some interesting percentages here. We have 331%, we have 334%, we have 336%. If we go over to the market, we have our weekly deals. We have a subscription perk, which doesn't actually really give you that much. And it's a 200% value. We have a wishing crystal. We have a gem pass, which does tell you how many gems you're getting. We have a gem, and here we have most popular and best value. All right, so what's my problem with this? My problem is those percentages don't mean a damn thing. Here's the thing. The Call of Antia developers set the prices for every item, every currency item in the game. They determine what its value is, and they determine what the ratio is. There's basically nothing in there that determines, well, this is definitively worth this amount of money. This is definitively worth that amount of money. And I'll delete all of those. And that kind of a little sketchy because if you the example here was actually given by user-friendly comic strip by Iliad several years ago, probably a decade or two ago by now, in which Microsoft was hauled into court on antitrust charges. Microsoft was found guilty, and Microsoft had to pay a certain amount back. And a vice president and user-friendly sketches out this idea where a Microsoft VP points out that they're the ones who set the price of a product. So if they're told that they have to give $10,000 worth of software to the European Union, then all they have to do is just change the price of Excel to $10,000, hand the European Union one copy of Excel, and technically they've met the legal requirements. They have paid their $10,000 fine because they're the ones who set the cost. I thought that was hilarious. Problem is, it's true. And Satya Nadella of Microsoft has kind of admitted this with the focus on subscriptions now with Windows 11 and the Office 365, where you basically can buy into the Windows software ecosystem for free. I mean, they'll sell you a license for cheap or they'll allow an ODM license for cheap, and then just as long as you're subscribed into the system, as long as you're part of their insider program, well, go ahead, go to as many windows as you want. You have a digital license activated to your account. That's kind of a tacit admission that since Microsoft set the price, they're not really making money on operating system sales. They're making money on service sales. And that's kind of important because you have things like OneDrive, which can be a very valuable service for storing and backing up data. And that's probably going to be more profitable than trying to sell someone an operating system every year or bundling an operating system with a computer. If they can get you hooked on OneDrive services or paying for Xbox Games Ultimate Pass, you get more money through a subscription because you're providing a service someone actually understands. Uh, and that comes, so the setting, again, we're going off on a tangent there. But that circles back around to if you are the developer and you set your own prices, when you attach a percentage value saying that this is a good deal, this is worth something, 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 actually doesn't mean much. It's actually kind of sketchy. And some would even go so far as to, and this is from their Discord, someone outright called it a scam. Now, I'm not so sure that it's a scam because uh, they are giving you an in game item. It has no cash value outside of the in game item. And if you enjoy the game and you want to support developers, well, they actually do have, I think, a good way to do that. They have their premium battle pass, and I've actually purchased a couple of these because you do get a number of rewards with the premium battle pass, and it can actually be worth it. Or for all the rewards that you get, you support the developer, they keep making the game, they keep adding new characters. So I don't begrudge the developers having special deals. I do kind of begrudge how those deals are presented. It is, I think, distinctly unethical. And again, I've seen the word scam thrown around. And then very recently, it became even more obnoxious. We have over here an alliance intruder. I don't know why they selected Pirate King. Normally this alliance goes for Dune Giant. So we'll go ahead and work through here. This should be interesting. Oh, brief moment when I realized that I still had the character loadout for the Dune Giant. So I'm not going to be able to do as much damage as I would probably be able to prefer. That doesn't mean I'm still not going to be able to rack up. Oh yeah, and this guy is doing something that is incredibly cheap. You might notice that the ghosts aren't dying despite racking up huge amounts of damage. Okay, I think I've racked him up enough damage boost that he is probably going to be able to wipe me with that attack. There we go. And I'm out. And I'm pretty sure I just wiped him off the board. Didn't quite do the most damage, but... Alright, anyway, so they introduced a new character. Well, they put Mary as a new Alliance intruder. At the same time that they put Mary as new Alliance intruder, they implemented a new character called Nan. Now, Nan, if we look up the information, her skill is she does 288% damage to all enemies for 5 hits, grants the character Protective Swords, and increases 43% attack for yellow allies for 4 turns. Protective Swords, when allies deal skill damage, Nan has a 50%, 100% when yellow allies deal skill damage, chance to unleash Power Sword slash enemies dealing 80% extra damage. Passive, increases damage dealt in Tournament of Valor and Alliance Intruder by 50%. So, this character is basically required to drop the Mary difficult level 200 to 240. Now, making a premium character who is required to complete an alliance challenge is a little sketchy. I'd go so far as to say that it's a little more than obnoxious. And there's also been a problem on the Alliance War. The last Alliance War that my team fought. Now, if you're wondering for a second, I'm going to this one because it's affinity to nature, increases duration buffs and debuff for all heroes for 2 turns. And I have a, let's bring up your information and look at him. Jane shares damage with all allies for 4 turns. So now on this board, Jane shares damage for 6 turns. And let's go back and look. And who else do we have? Banner of Glory does 230 damage to the caster, takes 75% less damage, and shares 80% damage with nearby allies for 3 turns. So this means that this skill now lasts for 5 turns. So the 2 characters, my 2 primary healers. Alright, let's go look at my healers for a second. And she's restores HP, and she just has an overload, but she's a high charge. And activates all green Naya stones. Heals 2 random allies and nearby allies for 3 turns. So, he now heals 2 random allies and nearby allies for 5 turns. Restoring HP equal to 10% of allies for every 10% of max HP every turn. So, now he's buffing up every 5 turns. Now, Mary's in here. Where are you, Mary? Oops. Okay. Deals damage equal to 65% of the total damage dealt to the target enemy within 3 turns after 3 turns. Now, I don't know if this works as I think it works, where I think it extends to 5 turns, since I haven't been on the opposing side of somebody using Mary on this particular board setup. I think since it's an attack, it's not technically counted as a buff debuff, but since you're buffing your enemy's damage, it may be counted where the damage may rack up for 5 turns instead of just 3 turns. But Mary basically there is a damage multiplier. So she makes everyone else's damage, and since I only have 2, this is basically an annoyance team where I have 3 healers. I have Jane, I have Hightow, and I have Cassandra. And Cassandra clears debuffs. So this is this is not really intended to win a battle so much as run a timer out. But that's why I picked this team for this particular board. And I'm trying to think if there's anyone else I could, while I'm thinking about it, I could easily swap in here. I mean, if I really wanted to be nasty, could go Blood Cure, heals all allies for 20% of the caster's max HP, and increases lifesteal of all purple allies, including the caster, by 20% for 3 turns. Now, what I don't really know here is the original text that I remember this character having implied that she granted lifesteal to all purple characters, but now it just says it increases it. So that may have been a change because you could rack up 18. Francis here deals 100 for 6 hit and dispels all buff from faction buff, increases attack and defense for Naya Church allies for 5 turns. So if I have a strong Naya Church contingent, they would get buffed for 7 turns. So that's kind of how you would, if you're going through and you're setting this up for an alliance. So when you have a character such as Nan now that completely obliterates this, has a specific function specifically for Alliance Intruder and Alliance battles, you've now given an overwhelming advantage to anyone who has that character. And that's a little sketch. And there's kind of just other little cuts coming. Another one is you can have up to 40 friends in your friends list. But you can only claim a certain percentage of friends points. You can only claim 20 per day. Now that seems kind of a little tacky because you can have more friends and you can apparently have points. And there's just been another example we'll focus on is the runestone pillars. Now I don't really remember what this replaced, but the current runestone system is a gambling. You get a certain amount of stones and you have a random draw for how many stones you actually get. Now, they have recently added a synthesis component, so now you can select runes that you may not be using and get a higher quality stone. And I just only have, and you can only do this synthesis with legendary stones, which is a little sketchy. You can't use the wave of what you've already got. This basically is only for players who are dumping tons of money into the game. And artifacts are another one where I've never seen an artifact yet. And again, it's just something for I've seen the term thrown around, whales who are just dumping money into the game. And you have a foraging system, which is just a random roll. Don't really have any control, any desire for what you get or what you don't get. Is this even? Okay, this does give me. This isn't bad. And we'll quickly level this up so I can go through and kind of show one of the other issues. Okay, here we go. Level up, confirm. Okay, so if you ascend a 5-level weapon, you pretty much have to use another 5-level weapon. I haven't yet seen, and we've got a Mirror of Caution here. Actually, I want a level 31. Oh, you've already been ascended. Ascend. Whereas you can get a Meteorite Stone, so you don't have to spend another level 4 weapon. But again, it's It's kind of sketchy. It's kind of inelegant. It's really a long way around. Here, buy stuff, buy stuff. And then one of the things that really turned me off is there's now video rewards. And if you're going, is a video reward? No. Now pay close attention here. Right now, I'm really glad that no sound is transferring between this. You might notice again that this advertisement opened up inside of the application. And no, I'm not messing with it, it just froze up. But this advertisement opened up inside of the application. So it inherently was granted all of the permissions of the application itself. Now, that sounds really nasty if somebody really has something nasty in mind and they're looking to scrape information, they're looking to look at who you've been calling, they might have a political objective, you might be in a country that has a tyrannical government. Having somebody who can just do whatever they want with your phone at any given time just seems like a really, really bad idea. And since this application apparently has crashed out, there we go. And now trying to get out of it, it's being a pain in the rear end.